Hey guys, what's up? I'm Greg. I hope you guys are ready to unpack and get into some good conversations today.
And I'm Jess, and this is our podcast, Baggage Claim. Thank you for joining us. Hey everybody, welcome to Baggage Claim. I almost forgot the name of our podcast. I'm laughing because it's my turn to do the intro and I'm a nervous wreck. And that's silly because we've done this. This is our 11th broadcast and I'm still a nervous wreck, but it's okay. So Baggage Claim is a podcast where we are sharing what makes us us. Greg, right?
That's right. Just marriage in a blended family, not in a blended family, just life in general.
Yeah.
All those fun things that entail in life. And so
I'm feeling a little bit silly or giggly because there's 19 days left in the school year where we live. And it's exhausting right now.
yeah, the kids are off the hook. They know. They can smell it in the air.
They know.
They're like sharks. They start circling. They smell the blood in the water, and they're like, "Summer's coming."
And several years ago, I had the bright idea to do a ABC countdown to the last day of school.
Mm-hmm.
Still doing that this many years later, and today was H is for hat.
Ooh,
Hat day.
sweet.
You would think you just wear a little hat on your precious little noggin, and we're just going to still do school. No. That is not, in fact, a few of the questions I asked my littles today, my little firsties. Have you lost your mind?
Okay.
I also asked, have we ever done that in the history of our first grade year together? A little question of a little precious silly goose.
Gotcha.
So I can't even remember. There was a few that I told you about earlier, but I can't remember. So we're all running on fumes right now.
Yeah, I can tell. You had such a productive day. I hung out with Richard, my barber, the coolest barber ever. Give me a cut. So
yeah. And tomorrow we have a field trip.
No, good for you.
And then in 2 days we have field day.
Yeah, field trips just breed
insanity.
Yeah, it's just it's like
Yeah. So the fact that we as teachers, especially firsties, shout out to my team, expect for us to be able to have any kind of normalcy is just crazy when we have literally planned insanity for the last 26 days of school. There's 26 letters in the alphabet, if you don't know.
Oh, thank you.
But yeah, there's just a lot. So anyway.
Well, let's do it a little different tonight because we've been saying, hey, we have these questions. We're going to read from our favorite book, A Year in Us, and we don't ever do it at the end. So we said, let's do our question at the beginning before to kick us off into what we're talking about tonight.
And I do have my trusty reading glasses this time.
Good for you.
Thank you. It's, like Greg said, it's from the book called A Year of Us. It's a couple's journal, and it's by Alicia Munoz. We will reach out to her, and we will have her here. Or at least virtually. So the question is, you ready?
Yeah, 100%. Go.
What song reminds you most of me and why? And you cannot use, quote unquote, our song.
Oh, okay.
Our song is by Ray LaMontagne. It's called You Are the Best Thing.
Right.
And it's a wonderful song.
It is, but I'm
That's
not
what
using that.
When we got married, we walked out of the church to that song.
All right. I don't know who sings this song.
Okay.
I don't even know if I know the title correctly.
Okay.
And no, it's not ludicrous.
Don't.
Oh.
Just don't.
It's a ludicrous.
Be tasteful.
Okay, I'm sorry. Golly. Front porch.
Porch swing angel.
Porch swing angel.
I knew that's what you were going to.
No, you did not. You just gave me a list of things I couldn't use.
No, not a list. I just said, a list of ludicrous songs you could not.
Okay, well, it's true. Okay. But
anyway, Porch Swing Angel, I can't remember who it's by. I'm pretty sure it's Muscatine Bloodline, but I'm not sure.
I was flipping a house in South Carolina, and I was working by myself one night, and I just had music blaring. I don't remember what I was doing, but I was just working by myself, and that song came on, and I just kind of stopped.
Yeah.
And I just remember sitting down, I was like, yeah, the
lyrics are really sweet.
Yeah, it is really cool because it just kind of speaks of, we have a porch swing. We don't really have a front porch. We have a garage. So we
Carport.
Old school carports built.
Our house is old school. It has a carport.
And so I
There's
put
no
it.
walls
I
in
put
it.
it in the carport so we could swing.
I mean,
Yeah, you enclose it
not
as a garage.
It's a carport.
It is a carport.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's mine. How about yours?
Mine is the Zach Brown song "You Make Loving You Easy."
Oh,
Because you
that was going to
do.
be the pink pony thing.
Oh my God. I said be tasteful.
Oh, sorry.
No.
Oh, I like that song.
Yeah, you do. You don't know that, and you would not probably accept that, but you do make loving you easy.
Oh,
It's easy to be married to you.
not always. Be careful.
95% of the time.
Well, we're excited. Tonight's a little different for us.
Yeah.
Well, it's not a little. We've sat down and we've spent a lot of hours just trying to dissect our relationship, our marriage. What was the good? What was the bad? What was the things we would change? We believe that all really successful marriages or good relationships have three components.
Yeah.
These would be marriages because
Healthy marriages.
healthy ones.
Yes.
The first part of that is the personal side of that.
Your personal health.
Yeah.
That's just not your physical health.
Right. It's emotional, mental,
And spiritual.
So those are all kind of like part of that, like your personality, who you are, how you process information, all those things are part of you, knowing you, how you work, being emotional intelligence, all that fun stuff.
So that's number one.
Number two is husband and wife as a couple or a couple, where you're at as a couple. You may be just together and going to get married, but you may be that couple. And then the third part is your family.
Yeah.
Whatever that family looks like. So those are the three key
We've
parts.
touched a lot on family health.
Most everything we talk about will fall into those three categories, everything we do. But tonight we're going to focus on the personal side. And something that is peppered into our story, but we've never been like outright front with it. But we just want you to know our journey of how we got to where we are in life.
And who we are as people.
Yeah, just who we are. And so with that being said, tonight we're going to talk about our faith and our faith journey of how we got to where we are and how it's helped us through.
And this is not us forcing our faith on others.
No.
But we just want to share that side of who we are because it's a big part of our foundation before we even knew each other.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So who's going first? Am I going first?
Yeah, you go ahead and share.
Okay. I'm going to be really quick. When people...
Well, it's okay if you're not quick because your story matters too.
Thank you. That's so sweet. You matter.
That's what my shirt says. If you're not watching us
Yes.
on my shirt says you matter.
Okay. So I grew up in a family, incredible mom. Dad was, I think I've shared some of that, was kind of...
Not so great.
Right, yes. We didn't grow up in church. We went to church on occasion. We weren't like regular attenders. It wasn't a huge part of our family life. Still had a great family. My mom really cared for us, loved us, did what she could. Faith was not a huge part of our story.
Right.
I never processed all the hurt, all the pain, all the things that I went through as a kid with my dad. So that trauma led to just drugs and alcohol. Just to make a long story short.
You're trying to Band-Aid it.
Yes, I was trying to hide it and blame everyone else and become a victim and saying, woe is me. My dad was this way, and so I do this. I had already had a couple run-ins with the police before I got out of high school. And so that just tells you the trajectory I was on. I had some friends who always invited me to church. I just never went. They would go, and I thought it was weird. They would have like CD burnings or record burnings and this weird stuff, and I would go dig out the really good CDs that they were trying to burn and take those home with me. So it was just like, I didn't hate church. I just really didn't have a need for, I didn't think I needed it in my life.
Yeah.
I could figure it out myself. Well, long story short, the drugs got heavier, alcohol became more, everything just progressed into something else. And it got to a point to where I'm like, I can't manage this anymore. And I'd had a friend who kept inviting me to church. And I would politely just tell him no every time he would. And I never really said, and then.
But you were the nicest, not so great guy. You were
I really
never
was.
mean.
I was probably one of the nicest
I'm going to say never.
drug dealer, alcohol dealers that I've known. Was very kind, very nice guy.
Right.
Yes. And
I just
did.
want to make sure you paint the picture correctly because you've always been a, like, quote unquote, good guy.
Yeah, I wasn't mean. And I didn't deal heavy drugs, just like pot, simple things.
Okay.
I wasn't that far into that.
I didn't mean for you to have to share that, but I was just saying, I didn't want you to paint the picture that you were a really bad guy.
But all through my life, I'd always said, I don't want to be like my dad. I don't want to be like my dad. I don't want to be this way. And I had this awakening moment where literally I had dropped some of my drugs. It was the white powder kind. Behind a toilet in a little vial. And I reached down. I remember reaching down and I'm on my hands and knees in this nasty toilet in this bar trying to get the substance. And I was like, this is my reality. This is who I am. I remember getting up from that and calling a friend. I was like, what time's church in the morning? He's like, oh, it's this time. I was like, cool, I'll be there. And this was at Chestnut Mountain Church. I went and I remember the guy, I don't remember a whole lot of what he said, but he was preaching this message and I went down front.
Like at you is one of those
Yeah, it's like,
moments.
dude, this dude's talking to me like nobody else is here. I remember going down front and I didn't grow up in church, so I wasn't churched at all. And I was like, dude, if what you're saying is real and this is real, what do I need to do? Like, cause this is all I got. Like this, I've trashed everything I have. This is what I got. And, I remember praying and he got up and he goes, okay. And I was like, that's it?
Okay.
And he goes, yeah. And he goes, chase after him now. Chase after God. And I was like, done. Can do that. And so it was a very, very Southern Baptist church. So the next day, they literally were like, hey, we go, all people who are visiting, you get these cards and we split up and you get to go with a deacon or an elder.
I
and you
still
guys
can't believe that you went the very next day to visitation.
I did. I was like, he said, chase after him. So I was like, I'm going to go, if the church was open, I'm going to go show up and do whatever it is they're doing.
Yeah.
I never visited anybody at church. I didn't even know what to say. Like they were going out to share the gospel.
You didn't
I was
know where
like,
you were going for sure.
I had no idea.
Showed up.
You show up and they give you these cards. And I was with a guy. I remember we were there and I was like, so what do we do? And he goes, we just go knock on the door and we just ask them if they have questions.
Where we grew up, it's very Southern Baptist, most of it. And so it was Monday night visitation.
Yes.
And most of the time you would take your guest visitor card and you would go visit those guests that just visited your church that day.
Yeah.
And so that's what you were doing.
Yes, I was on that visitation train.
Visitation.
And just so you know, it's not highly public. There was like maybe 6 people there, and I was one of the 6. Yeah. So we had 2 cards.
Monday night visitation.
Yeah, it's not a big crowd gathering. So I remember going, and we knocked on these 2 people's door, and they weren't there. And I was like, "Well, what do we do now?" And he goes, "Well, we're just done." I was like, "Bro, no,
we're not."
I was like, "I know some guys that'll be home." And he's like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Okay, these are friends of mine." And I was like, "They may dabble in the drug scene." But I was like, they're home and they're really nice people.
I'm proud of you for giving them like a heads up, but they had no idea.
No, they had no idea. So we go in and we knock on the door and they're like, Greg, what's up? This is the next day. This is just the day before. And I was like, hey, man, what's up? This is my buddy. I literally had just met. I can't remember who it was. And I remember we're sitting on the couch and the guy's rolling up a joint, like he's smoking it, like about to smoke it. And I was like, hey, bro, tell him what I heard yesterday at church.
Your Southern Baptist counterpart.
Yeah, I was like, tell him the story you told me. And he's looking at me like, you tell him what? I was like, tell him what the preacher said. Like, I had no idea what was going on. And so it was just one of those kind of, he's like, okay.
You were so excited, right?
Yeah, I was. I was like, bro, you have to hear what I heard.
Yeah.
And some of my buddies were like, whoa, that's way cool. And I was like, all right, well, if you want any more, just let me know. Like, and so we left. We went to 2 other of my drug dealer buddies' houses that night. And I think it's probably the most exciting visitation this guy had ever had. That was with me. Yeah. He's just like, what have I gotten into?
Yeah, who is this Greg guy?
So from that launched into if the church was open, I was there.
Yeah.
Went and bought a Bible the next day. And then I showed up at this Christian bookstore back when Amazon wasn't around. And so I went to the Christian bookstore and they had the CDs lined up as the number 1 seller all the way to the bottom.
Was it the one that used to be in our town?
Yes, in Gainesville. Yeah. And so I walk in and I was a Metallica, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden. That was my jam.
Grungy.
Yeah, I love that music. So I went up and I was like, I'm gonna buy the #1 CD in this Christian bookstore and listen to
You
it.
got the Gaither Vocal Band.
Gaither
didn't
Vocal
you?
Band. I don't know if you've heard them, but you should just Google Gaither Vocal Band and listen to. And I was a Pearl Jam, like Nirvana,
man.
grunge. Like I liked hard rock, and I was like, man, if this is Christian music, okay.
I don't want it.
I was like, this is gonna be tough. But I remember I went and sat down and I just started reading my Bible, and I read. I think in the first month I read
I bet
it.
you were so happy when like DC Talk and
Oh yeah, man, I
Potters
was
of Clay,
loving
those guys came out.
Yeah, Jars of Clay, all those guys were like, yes, please. Was it POD? One of those guys were out too. So it was like, so I had no idea, and no one was really like me in the church.
No.
And so there was like, hey, there's this mission trip. We're going on a mission trip. And I was like, dude, I'm down for that.
Yeah.
What do we do? And he's like,
You were all about adventure.
yeah, it's like, we're just going out of the country. We're going to go share, a faith. What we did, we're going to preach. And I was like, preach? He's like, yeah, you stand up and we're just telling people about God. And I was like, I'm in. I'm done. I was like, I got to get permission from my probation officer first.
There was one hitch for you.
Yeah, so I had to get my probation officer to sign off on that trip. And we went into Romania, flew into Romania. It was my first time on a plane, first time out of the country. Flew to Romania and then stayed in Romania for a couple of days. And we went into Ukraine, and I was in Ukraine for about a week. And we were out, and I had been a Christian literally
like
maybe
15 minutes.
Yeah, like just a few months. And I remember the guy, he was the worship leader. It was Blackshire Place, it's Thomas Christ Place now. He gave me the microphone and he goes, I feel like God's telling me to share, just get up and share. And I was like,
Yikes.
"Ooh, yes, sir." And I grabbed the mic, stood up, and I just started talking. And we did that for a week. Like we would do that
Greg story ever.
2 or 3 times a day for a solid week. And I remember coming back, I was sitting in a hotel room on the ledge, and there was a lot of military unrest in Romania at that time. This is a long time ago,
You were
folks.
on the balcony.
I remember sitting out on the balcony, and I was just sitting there, and I could see the tanks just rolling around. And I could hear as clearly as day God saying, he was calling me. He's like, your life now is about serving others.
Yeah.
And that was so clear to me. I didn't know what that looked like. I didn't know what that meant. So when I got back, I was like,
that was like an actual call to ministry at that point.
I had no idea. I was just like, I don't know. I don't know the church words to say. I was like, dude, I'm just going to serve people. I'm going to love on people.
Yeah.
And so I got back and I was just like, okay, I'm in. And I started reading. I think my first year I read through the Bible cover to cover like 4 times. I was just like sponge. Just give me everything you got. I had a buddy of mine who I met through some of the students there a little later in college, and we started going and doing street witnessing in Atlanta. And so we would go every Friday night. They would do homeless ministry, and they would feed people at the corner of Lucky and Springer. There's church, it was North Metro, I think, was set up, and they would grill hot dogs for homeless people. And so we went and did that, and we're like, you know what? We're going to go meet these homeless people where they're at and just talk to them.
You're leading up to one of my favorite stories of your whole Christian walk.
And so we went to our college. We were at college. I don't know why they let me in college. They asked me to leave after a little. But anyway, it's a story for a different day.
That's a different story.
But when you go to college, they would give you these care packages, and it had toothpaste, toothbrush, all the shaving stuff. So I went and asked the people, I was like, what do you do with all the leftovers? And they was like, well, we just give them away. And I was like, well, we're doing homeless ministry. Can I have them? She goes, yes. So a buddy of ours, we had boxes and boxes and like hundreds of these things. So we broke them down, and when we started making little care packages, we would go to Atlanta and we would hand these things out. And we saw this need. We're like, dude, nobody comes down here and really cares for these people. So it's like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to feed all these people on Thanksgiving. So we're going to come down here on Thanksgiving
But that
Day.
area now is what?
It is now Olympic Park.
Yeah.
It's now, they mowed it all down. It was Techwood at the time.
It was awful.
And like
I say awful. It was dangerous.
It's a very dangerous part of town. Like cops would see us and be like, hey, what are y'all doing here? Why are you here? And we're like, we're just giving stuff to homeless people talking. He's like, don't call me if that stuff goes sideways. Like, you don't need to be here.
Yeah.
We got that all the time. Walked into so many drug deals I can't count on one hand. Encountered some demon-possessed people. Weird. But anyway.
Go forward to what I always refer to as your fishes and loaves story.
So we were feeding, we were going to feed people on Thanksgiving. So we had a buddy of ours, Todd Robinson, which I love dearly. And has like, we're like, dude, we're getting a grill. We want to feed people. He goes, man, I got some chicken and hot dogs.
But I mean,
owns a food.
That's what he sounds like.
Yeah, awesome dude, best dude. I love this guy. Do anything in the world for him. Good old country boy.
Yeah.
Very talented musician, by the way.
Yeah.
But anyway, he gave us tons of these hot dogs and chicken. We're just pulled the grill down to the back of our truck, and we just had all these sides. We're like, we're just going to start handing out food to anybody who wants to show up. So we pulled up in an empty parking lot. This is how planned we were. Pulled up in an empty parking lot, and we just started grilling food and said, hey, tell everybody we have food here. Well, all of a sudden, there's hundreds upon hundreds and hundreds of people there. And we're like, we're going to run out of food. Yeah. And so we're all sitting around, and it's like, well, what do we do? And we're like, I don't know. You want to be religious and be like, well, let's pray. Let's pray about it. And I was like, okay. So we all get in this circle and we're like, it was one of those simple prayers like, okay, God, it wasn't very churchy. We're here feeding homeless people and we're about to run out of food. We need food. We need food to give these people. Amen. That was about it. Like it was that as soon as that prayer finished, these 4 white vans, like catering vans, come pulling up. And the guy, I think it was Shane or somebody, come up and we go over and he's like, hey man, like we had a big party planned, party canceled. We got all this food. We saw you guys feeding people. Do you need this food? It's one of those moments you're just like,
you can't not get emotional about that.
Yeah. You're just like, whoa. Like it's one of those moments in life where you're like, there's something so much bigger.
And who am I to be a part of that?
Yeah, it's like, you heard that. Like somebody heard that.
Yeah.
But it was crazy. Those times made me kind of go, oh, okay, God, whatever you lead, wherever you open a door, I'm going to run through that. Which led to, which is crazy enough, which led to me becoming an ordained minister at that church. I worked at that church for 7-8 years, did everything from student ministry to college ministry to loved it, had a blast, was awesome. Left that, did a job with my buddy, then wound up with another job at 12 Stone Church.
After we got married?
Yes, doing, I didn't, and I did all their small groups. They were expanding from 4 campuses to 8 campuses. They needed some help facilitating that and building small groups and curriculum and all that.
You had a hand in hiring the campus pastors too.
A few of the campus pastors, which are amazing guys. Love you, Trey. Anyway,
and
it's
Paul.
Oh yeah, I didn't hire Paul. Oh. No, but anyway, it was.
I still love you.
A little bit. So it's so I worked there for about 4.5 years, 4 or 5 years. I can't remember exactly.
I think it was 5.
Then left there. And then wound up at River Bend as an executive pastor position there. What's crazy is I never, ever applied for any of those church jobs. Like I never went.
From the beginning.
Yeah, I never went hunting for one of them. I never submitted a resume. I never submitted anything other than just saying those doors will open for me. And it was just, there's just a reminder that.
Pretty wild.
Yeah, God can do whatever he wants.
He sure can.
Yeah. So that's my faith journey that's led me to here. I'm not your normal Christian, as what people would see as a Southern Baptist Christian. I think I'm pretty normal. I have a lot of tattoos, but they all tell my faith story, or they're based around mine.
I do too, and mine also tell my story.
I like to drink a little bit. I have a drink every now and then. And it's like, but I'm in the Southern Baptist world or in the Southern culture, people are like, oh my gosh. But it's like, no, I love Jesus. I love people and I want to serve them and serve him. And so it looks a little different for other people, but that's okay. You don't have to fit into the mold that I think you have to fit into.
No.
And that's okay. But anyway, that's my journey.
My faith journey looks a lot different.
And that's okay.
I did grow up in church. I did have a mama that took me to church and a grandmother that made sure I was there. And my dad didn't go to church with me and us until I was older. That's his story to tell in his journey. But till I was, literally until I was 20. He supported us being there. He was not against it. And now he's there every time the doors are open.
Yeah.
But my mama always made sure that I was in church. And then later when my brother was born, my brother was there as well. I became a Christian when I was 12. And for me, at such a young age, having grown up there, it was not this. Now, it is a life-altering moment, don't take me wrong, but it was not this big light bulb moment because I had already learned everything because that's where I grew up and that's just what I knew. But when that's the age that I realized, oh, but it is for me. So
Gotcha.
being young, and I was always involved in church and at youth and helping at Bible school. And
I went to one of those.
You did.
I used to go to Bible schools. My mom would take me to those.
Yeah.
So.
I was, singing in the youth choir, and then all the time in church. That did lead to my first marriage, but when I started dating TJ in high school, I was like, one of the things you have to do if you date me, you have to go to church.
No, he wasn't a church goer at the time. Okay.
No, he was kind of like you, that he would go to Bible school or whatever.
We had a lot of the same friends.
You did have a lot of the same friends, yeah. So when we got married, right around that same time is when he was called to ministry, because he had just gotten so head over heels in love with serving at church. And God called him to ministry. A little bit similar path too, with youth pastor and helping with college and career, and y'all kind of ran the same circle as youth pastors.
Yeah,
there for a little bit.
It's interesting because I met him.
You did. It's kind
of
at
weird. A couple of youth things, and we had a round table thing.
You did,
but I didn't know him personally.
No,
I just met him, but I'd never met you. I didn't know you at all.
No, so that's kind of strange.
Yeah.
And then I've always kind of laughed that I've been married to two pastors. It's like. Do I attract pastors? I don't know, but I'm okay with that. But as far as I don't have a fishes and loaves story in my faith like you do. But that's a very real God moment for you, and a very real God moment for me was after Erin Grace was born. She was born premature. She was about 6 weeks premature. And we found out when she was about 2 weeks old that she had congestive heart failure. And she was a very, very sick baby. You already know all this.
Yeah.
But she was a very sick baby.
These folks don't, though.
Our friends don't. My teeny tiny baby had 2 holes in the top part of her heart and 1 gigantic hole in the bottom of her heart. So basically her oxygenated blood was almost not oxygenated where it should be, and where it goes into the other chambers where it's supposed to exchange the oxygen, it just did not. And then her little liver was working overtime trying to pump all that fluid out. But again, she was 2 weeks old before we found out at her literal 2-week checkup. So anyway, she was a very sick little one, and she was on a lot of medications, and we were at the doctor all the time, cardiologist and specialist, and we were at 2 different cardiologists just to make sure, and it's just a whole long story.
Yeah.
Anyway, so us and the whole church, our family, friends, everybody was praying for her healing. And then, but TJ and I had decided, of course we're going to pray for her healing because that's obviously what we want for her. But then we were also praying of, if you choose not to heal her, then give us the strength to give her the care that she needs. Because all of the doctors told us that, we won't know what kind of quality of life she'll have till she's 5. So it was a lot to handle. Right. When we had a 2.5-year-old Thomas, wild man, all boy already, just wild. Yeah. Thank God for all the grandparents and great-grandparents that were around, because, whoa, I'm trying to go to the doctor with Erin Grace literally every week. Anyway, so fast forward about 18 months later, after we've been to the doctor over and over again, we were preparing at 18 months for her first open heart surgery that was to take place right before she was 2. And we went, there was the first time TJ had not gone with me to one of her cardiology appointments. He had some kind of meeting he couldn't get out of. And so I went, and bless her little teeny heart, she was so accustomed to it, she'd either take a bottle while she was having her EKG done and the echo done, or as she got a little bit older, I would give her sugar-free Dum-Dums. And so she was sitting there at that point, it was her sucker, and she was just slobbery, sugary, but she was just sitting there taking all the tests and all. Well, it was faster than normal, and I was like, okay, that's just the same, whatever, so let's make a plan. And the tech that was in there was a gentleman that had done most of her testing, and he was like, I'm going to go get Dr. Carpenter. This is Lady Jillian Carpenter. She was amazing, Dr. Carpenter. He said, I'm going to go get her. I'll be right back. You can go ahead and dress Erin. I was like, okay. And so Dr. Carpenter said, meet me in my office. And I was like, oh boy, okay. So I cleaned Erin Gracie, and we were going to her office, and Dr. Carpenter said, so I want to show you some new pictures. And I was like, okay. And I had already learned what Aaron's heart looked like. And she said, I want to show you here, here, and here. And she circled the 3 places where her little holes, not little, her gigantic holes had been. And she said, they're gone. Mm-hmm. And she said, and I'm going to get emotional. She said, I don't know how to explain it. And I was like, but I do.
Yeah.
And so that probably was my first faith crisis of, is God who he says he is? And is he the healer that he says he is? And I know that he is. And so it was fascinating and just like, whoa, all at the same time, I'm holding this tiny little baby that's so sickly. But then I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Okay, here we go. And that just turned everything around.
Right.
So that was a huge portion of my faith journey until later on.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't want to say oh, okay, so you had a moment of crisis. Like, what happened when you were really pushed? But that's a
huge push.
Yeah, that's a huge push, especially in your faith.
Yeah.
So for you, I would say, how did you handle? When TJ passed away? What did that do to your faith journey? What happened there?
It was kind of interesting because now that I've shared that, I really did reflect back on that of Aaron Grace's experience, because I was like, okay, I was literally told this baby might die.
Right.
And I'm not going to know, if you're told we are collectively, we are not going to know what kind of quality of life this child is going to have until she's 5. But in mine and TJ's life, in our family, our church family, it was like, but God.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly. But
sometimes our prayers don't get answered.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's a handful of episodes ago when I referred to that verse that was etched on that little rock thing that I did find, if you've been listening all along, where it was, all things work for good for those who love God. I kept going back to that verse, and after TJ died, I was just like, what possible good is there in this? There's not any for me. There's not any for my kids. Like, what are people supposed to learn from this? Me. Like, what are we supposed to learn? So through counseling, a Christian-based counselor was what I chose for me, because that's what spoke to the core of who I am. Helped me to learn, number one, it's okay to be, but it's okay to be pissed off about what happened.
Right. 100%.
Like, I have every right, and God agreed with me. I had every right to be mad about what happened. Mm-hmm. But also after months and months and months, okay, now what?
Right.
I had to choose for myself, what do I do with that anger? Mm-hmm. Do I choose to be bitter the rest of my life and live in that area? Or do I choose to still be the kind of person I always have been and look for good? I couldn't find it for several months.
Yeah.
I couldn't. But I had to relearn how to look for what the definition of good even is. It didn't look like what I had pictured.
Right.
But I had to also be okay with that too.
Yeah.
What about you? Now, all that, what I said of, when the crisis of a crisis of faith have happened, what did that look for you though? Like when your marriage fell apart.
Yeah. Well, I didn't handle mine quite as good as you did yours.
I didn't always handle it good, but I tried.
I didn't want to have anything to do with church.
Yeah.
I didn't want to have anything to do with God. I didn't want to listen to worship music. I don't have anything to do with it. If I'm honest, I even went through a time where I burned some furniture in my backyard. Set fire to it and just burned it. And I had a buddy of mine that I love dearly, Fabian, literally showed up and just sat with me for a day, almost a day and a half, sometimes 2 days, and would never say a word. He just would sit with me. And I would just sit there sometimes and just cry. And sometimes he would just put his arm around me and we would just sit there together, which was huge. He didn't have to say anything. No. But I was mad. I busted the front window out of my truck. I punched it one morning. I was mad. So to say I didn't handle I was angry. I was just mad because I was like, I thought I've done everything the way that I was told. The church told me
what I was
what to
about
do.
to say.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, the scenarios are different, but you and I both, and we've talked about this over and over again, we both were doing all the quote unquote right things in our separate ministries. And the ways we were living our lives separately we're doing all the things that we're supposed to be doing.
Well, right, considering what the church being the building you go to sometimes.
Yeah.
Now, I believe the church is the people, is us, is you. I believe it resides within us. But it's the idea for me is like, I was doing all those things you told me to do. I did those.
We were tithing, we were serving, we were living our life the way.
And I was like, this is what happens. So I was just mad. And I always kept referring to, because I just felt like I was like, okay, God's left me. Like he just left and now I'm done with this. And that was when that moment of, and I've shared this earlier, I think, when I was just, after I punched my window out, burned furniture, I was drinking a little too much, and I realized, at least I had enough awareness to go, what I'm looking for is not found in this.
Yeah.
I didn't make great decisions. Just hear me. I was just trying to keep my head above water, and I was burning bridges and messing up people. I was a hurt person, and I was hurting people that were in my path. And that's what it was. And it was not pretty. But I remember that night laying in the floor in the bathroom, just sobbing, and it was that audible voice again, that same audible voice I heard in Romania.
Get up.
Yeah, I was just like, get up. And I got up. I remember sitting on the side of the tub in that house, and he's like, okay, are you done? And I was like, well, crap, I guess so. Yeah, I guess I am.
Sure am, yes,
yeah.
sir.
All right, so I guess I am. And so it was that, but for me, it was like, as much as I cussed him every morning on the way to work, I was mad at him. I wouldn't read my Bible. I wasn't doing the things that God loved me anyway. And he still loved me no matter what I did. And he loved me through the hurt and the pain. He didn't go anywhere. He was always there. Yeah. And so it was...
What's crazy to think about, though, this is as a Christian for you and I, because we've, talked about it a little bit, just not on the podcast, but it's like that same God that saved you from the life you were trying your best to trash, was the same God that was still loving you through that period of time. Yeah. And for me to think back of, that's the same God that literally healed my daughter from death, is the same God that allowed her dad to be killed in an accident. Like
faith is not.
It's not easy.
It's not a neat package you put together.
It's not pretty.
Yeah, and when you go in somewhere, if somebody tells you, "Oh, this is going to be all you got to do is pray this prayer, everything's going to be fine," that's not. No, it's not the full truth. There's more to that. No. Like it's hard.
Yeah, it's not, because sometimes you have to put the rubber to the road, or whatever phrase I'm trying to think of. Is like, sometimes you have to be like, no, I actually do believe this. And now I have to act like it, even though it hurts so bad. Yeah.
So wherever you are, like that's like this, our unpacked section is going to look a little different tonight. Yeah. Today or whatever it is.
Whatever time you listen to this. We knew that this episode will be a little different than others.
Could be a little heavy. Could be.
It is.
But I want to share with you something though, like, wherever you are at in life, if you're riding your car, drinking your coffee, wherever you're at, you're in one of three places. You're in a storm, you just came out of a storm, or you're about to go into a storm. Yeah. You're in one of those three places. Which reminds me of, I used to lead these backpacking trips out of Montreat College. And this was the last day, and we all had to come back into this. It was a 7-day trip, backpacking trip. And so we had to come back we were coming back. It was the last night we had to spend. So we're looking for somewhere, and we're on the side of Mount Mitchell. And if you don't know, it's a really big mountain outside of Asheville, and weather blows in really, really quick. And so I left my group. I was like, you guys hang out here for a second. I'm going to go down the mountain, look for a place to camp. I'll be back to get you. I said, okay, cool. Well, I'm down there and I feel the wind picking up. I feel it getting cool. I was like, here comes the storm. I got to go. So I take off running back up this trail up to the mountain. I get up there and it is just dumping rain. And it's lightning. And you could feel the storm coming. I was like, we're not in it. And they're like, hey, we all got these tarps and we set them up. And they're all standing in this massive puddle of rain next to this massive, massive tree, the big tree. And I was like, that's an awesome idea, but we don't need to be here right now.
This is
like
a big fat no.
Yeah, we need to get out from under this tarp and we need to scatter out. And they're like, why? And I was like, so if lightning hits, it doesn't hit all of us. It only hits one or two of us. And then the girls start freaking out and people start screaming and they're crying. And I was just, I remember this.
I got to do a side note real fast.
Okay.
Because I didn't know anything about weather much till.
Oh, don't share this.
At a previous house that we lived at, we had a pool. And it was you and I, and this is before my brother and his wife, Corey and Brittany, had children. And we were sitting, and all four of our kids were just maniacs all over the place. And you were like, oh, it's about to storm. And that pool did have a beautiful view of the sky. And we were like, you're insane. The sun is still out. And he was like, Greg.
I said, if there's one thing I know, it's weather patterns.
And this
you
many
thought
years
it was
later,
the most hilarious
Brittany
thing in the
and I-
But what did it do that day?
It did. But
Thank you.
Brittany and I thought it was the funniest thing.
Yeah, so every time now it's
about.
about to rain, they go, if there's one thing I know, it's weather patterns. So,
But
regardless,
as silly as we thought it was, it is true.
thank you for ruining my story.
But it's true. You were correct. The moral of the story is that you were correct.
So we're out, and I have these people, these high school kids lined up, and I have them separated. And I was like, you get in lightning strike position. And like, what is that? I was like, you put your knees together and you hunker down. And I was like, they're like, why? I was like, so if the lightning hits the ground, it goes up through one leg, goes to the knee, and it goes out the other foot. I was like, it won't hit your vital organs. That didn't help. And still, like, safety in them.
Yeah.
And so they're crying. And I was like, don't worry, CPR is highly effective
Oh my
with lightning
God.
strikes. And I'm certified, so we're all good.
I would
So
have been
it's
part of
like,
the crying crew.
it is dumping. I mean, when it lightens and it hits, like the ground shaking, it's that close. Like we're high up on this mountain. It's just pounding us.
Yeah.
And I keep walking up and down this line. I was like, just hang in here because the storm's going to be gone in a minute. Just keep hanging in here because it's going to be gone in a minute. Like this storm's going to pass. It's going to pass. And
Did they believe you?
they were screaming and crying. And some of the guys were trying to act all cool. And they're like, yeah, this is awesome. And I'm like, but anyway, finally the storm did pass by.
Right.
And we're all standing there soaking wet. And I was just like, okay, let's grab our bags and head down to go camp. And, there are a lot of trauma there that we didn't process or work through. But in life, but in life, that's literally
It is.
where we're at. And it's true. Some storms are just like, it just blows in. It's really quick. It's something simple. And some hang out for a while. Some cause a lot of destruction. Some just wreck your life. And some
But-
don't. So with that being said, you're in one of those three places.
And what grounds you, though? I mean, that's the question for our friends.
Yeah, I sort of said you were
What-
asking me, but I thought we were unpacking
I know
here.
what grounds you.
Okay.
But to unpack, we're asking our friends, what grounds you when you're in those storms?
Yeah, what's your? I think for me, it's almost the question of what's your true north? Like, what's guiding you? What's
And there's
anchoring
two
you?
avenues.
Yeah.
I mean, there may be some debate in that, but for us, there's two avenues. Is it a faith-based avenue? Are you a Christian? Is that what grounds you as a couple? It's not just individual. Like, do you share the same faith as your partner? What happens if you don't?
Right.
Do you support one another in your faith journey? Or, even if you are a Christian, you may not have yet had a true, I don't say true, you may not have felt like you've had a test of your faith yet.
Right.
But at some point it will happen, and a storm may come. What grounds you in that?
Oh, they're coming.
Yeah.
And so the idea is, even if you're not on that faith journey and you haven't been, I think that's the question to ask. Like, what ground? What am I trusting in? What do I trust? What am I like? You say grounding. I'm like, what am I anchoring myself to? What's my hope?
I mean, that's a question for Christian and non-Christian.
Right, of course. And when I say Christian, I don't mean someone who goes to church and sings songs and doesn't cuss or drink or hang out with people who do. Mm-hmm. That was always the phrase that everybody said, and I was like, I don't understand that. Yeah. Like, I should be hanging out with those people. But anyway,
that's a different podcast.
Yeah, I don't want to get that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about something that's real, live in relationship in your life. You're pursuing, you're chasing. So it's not.
If you don't have that, where do you turn?
Yeah.
When you face a storm. And that's not for you and I to answer.
No.
These are questions to think about your own self. Where do you find hope?
Right.
And, what's holding you? And like what you said, what is your true north?
Right. Because we don't talk about our faith a lot on here because I don't want people to. I'm not going to Bible beat people.
No,
I'm
we're
not
going to shove our
just
faith down your throat, but that's just a really big piece of who we are.
Yeah, it kind of keeps us centered and focused in our lives as we move forward. It's because marriage is hard and blended families are hard.
It is.
And so
lifing is hard.
Yeah, as you're asking yourselves those questions, what's your true north? What's grounding you? What's your hope in? Man, take some time and just sit down and ask those questions to each other. Just have some discussion around it.
It's not easy discussions either.
No.
I mean, the first million times we've talked about these stories with each other of what we've been through, it was not easy.
No.
I mean, now we know each other's stories inside and out, but as we went through and we figured out, okay, we're putting this together, I need to know where you're at as a person so that we can put this together as a couple, as a unit for our family.
Gotcha. Yeah, 100%.
And our friends need to know how to do that too.
They do. So
if you have questions.
Yeah. If you have questions, if you want to chat about it, you know how to catch us on all the socials.
All of them.
There's actually even a place too, if you're listening to this, where you can actually tap in fan and you can text in the podcast and we get those notifications.
We'll be happy to set up even like a FaceTime or Zoom, whatever you're comfortable with, or if you're near us to set up time
coffee,
to sit down.
Whatever it may be. Like our goal, just so you guys know, our goal in Baggage Claim is to help people through marriage. That's it.
And to be completely transparent as we do it.
Yes. And sometimes that's not pretty and sometimes it is.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for joining in. Thank you for sharing our podcast. It's growing each week, but make sure to, if you're listening on any one of our other channels, make sure to like, subscribe, and just join us. So thank you.
We're enjoying doing this with y'all.
Yeah. Love you guys.